Hey there, welcome to Board Game Barrister, our local game shop in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is Tuesday, and every Tuesday we get to play a game. Today, that game was The Spill, a game where a oil rig has ruptured and is spilling oil out into the water. We are the task force that has to go and clean it up. I'm here with my fellow barristers, Gordon, Ian, and Glenn, and we're going to talk you through everything we thought about our first game we just got to play. But before we do that, let's talk about how to play. Welcome to The Spill from Smirk Dagger Games. In this game, the offshore oil rig, Deep Well 4, right here, has ruptured and is spilling oil out into the water, threatening the marine life in this bay. We're going to be playing as the task force that's been assigned to go clean up the oil, but also get as many of those animals out of danger as we can. When the game starts, we're going to do a few things to set the scene and set our difficulty, and the first of those is to choose a win condition card. There are 9 of these cards, and they come in 3 different difficulties, signified by the number of dots in the corner here. So today we played one of the 1 dot difficulty cards, and one of those cards might say our goals are something like removing 4 of the oil dice within 4 consecutive turns, removing a total of 9 oil dice from the game, and saving 4 full sets of marine animals, and we'll talk about all that in a sec. Once we know our win conditions, we're going to choose our specialists for the game. So these are going to be the task force members who will be working on this spill. Every time we play, we're going to choose 4 of these specialists, no matter how many players there are, and then we're going to share control of them among the players. We're also going to choose a difficulty within our spillouts track, and you can see here we can choose between standard, challenge, and ultimate. We're going to put this oil counter in the track we want to play. Today we played on standard. And lastly, we always start the game with the actual spill, so we're going to take 8 oil dice and drop them into the tower. Each die is going to land in one of these 4 quadrant boxes, which tells us which fourth of the board it's going to go into, and then within that quadrant we're going to put it into the sector that matches the result of each of those dice. So this 5 is going to go in the 5 in that quadrant it landed in. Now it's our turn to start cleaning up and rescuing some animals. Each of the specialists is represented by one of the little ships out on the board here, and they are always present in one of the 24 sectors on the board. On your turn, you've got 4 action points, and you're going to use those action points to do a few different things. One of them is to be able to move up to 2 sectors away, so this specialist could move 2 sectors to the 6 here. You can also rescue wildlife, so I could take this dolphin here for 1 action point and put it over on our situation board as a rescued marine life token. We can also address the oil that's spilling forth in 2 different ways. The cheaper one is to just put an oil from your sector back into the bag, so that'll still be there waiting for you, but it's gone for the moment. Or you can spend 3 of your action points to remove an oil die entirely, and that's going to put it over on the situation board in the removed oil section. Let's take a quick look at the situation board here. You can see that we've got our rescued marine life. Here's the dolphin we just saved, and we've also got our removed oil. Now, notably, the rows in the rescued marine life and the columns in the removed oil all have these little orange cubes next to them. That's because if we manage to fill any of those rows or columns, we get to take these orange cubes, and there's one more resource we have as players that we can use to help us stem the flow and rescue the marine life. Those are in the form of these resource cards. So we're going to have 4 of these resource cards on the table at all times. They're inert when the game begins, but we can make them active by putting the cubes we earn out onto those cards, which will give us one-time abilities we can use by activating them once we have the cubes on them. So between our 4 specialists, all of our action points, our turns, and the resource cards, we've got a lot going for us, but the real danger in the game is going to come from the fact that at the start of every player's turn, they have to roll new dice and spill more oil out into the bay. And as those oils start to build up, 2 different bad things can happen. If we ever add an oil to a spot that has a marine life in it, that marine life is going to be flipped to its contaminated side, and we have to act fast to try to push that oil away from it, or it can end up in the sick bay and lost to us for the entire game. If we ever let a 3rd oil spill out into a sector without cleaning it up, that's going to cause a spill out. We can use one of these tokens to represent it spilled out, and every time we get one of those spill outs, we're going to move the oil token 1 space further along the spill out track, and we could end up having to draw and roll more dice every turn if we let that get far enough. Plus, if we ever have 6 spillouts currently active at the end of a player's turn, we lose the game. Speaking of losing the game, there are 3 different ways we can lose. One is to have those 6 spillouts active at the end of a player's turn. Another is if we ever allow 3 of the same animal type to end up in sickbay. And the last is if we let a full set of all 6 marine life types end up in sickbay. So it's a constant race against time and oil as we keep rolling more dice into the different quadrants, adding them to sectors where they'll contaminate animals and eventually cause spillouts, all while we're trying to complete our win conditions before we lose the game. All right, so we played our game today on all of the easiest settings possible. There's a track here for how dangerous oil spilling out gets, and then there are different wind condition difficulties. We played one of the wind condition cards with the easiest difficulties. So we played on easy mode, got pretty dicey in the end, which we'll talk about, and it took us about 40 minutes to play our game, and that feels about right. Like, it's going to take about that long every time you play. This game is kind of built to be played with 4 players. You're always going to use 4 of the specialist characters in the game, no matter how many players you have. So having one person control each of those felt great. There is a different number of these that you'll control based on how many people are playing, and that's all in the rulebook, but it really is like a perfect game at 4 players. All right, let's talk about what we thought of it.
There we go.
Make it so. All right. Well,
These are
start
bad
grabbing.
news.
It starts off pretty mellow. It's like you got a couple of dice coming out, no big deal. And it builds quickly. Where I've played a lot of the cooperative games where it's just that kind of slow churn through everything. This is the, here you go, have a nice fun game. Oh my gosh, everything's dying. Why don't you? So it just builds up super fast. So you're constantly having to think ahead of what you're doing too, because the constant have to adapt and adjust and go with the flow as it's flowing out of that well in random directions. I like that a lot.
The thing that I enjoyed the most was the different types of characters that we all started with. We got to choose based on the win conditions that were presented at the beginning, but every single one of us felt really, really relevant. And I think a lot of times in cooperative games, you might have a special ability that doesn't really get to shine the way you want it to, or you think it works a certain way and then it doesn't. But in this one, it was really apparent that each character's ability to do their different things came through in our actions in the game. For example, I was the oil specialist, and the hazmat specialist, and my entire side of the map where I was during the game had like no oil on it at all. But then you look at the other side where they were saving all the animals, and theirs is covered in oil, right? But all the animals are saved. So now you've got these different characters that can do their different special abilities throughout the game. That made it feel really unique and interesting and pretty fun.
Yeah, there's always 3 ways to lose the game, and then your win condition card has 3 things you have to do to win, so there's a ton of stuff to address at all times. So being able to use your character's abilities, there's always a way to find a way to use your character's abilities. On a turn where you don't get to, it actually feels like you're only going to do that because there's something super threatening that you have to deal with right now.
Sure. Oh, that's bad.
Where does that go?
Clockwise.
Overflow Fest Specialist!
All right,
Quick!
so I think we want to have that go right to there. Yeah.
Okay.
Overflow specialist. Oh no. That's fine. We got plenty of oil to remove right there. All right. So what are we doing? We're
We're
airlifting
going to
this turtle?
airlift the turtle out. He
Alright,
gets
turtle.
put healthy side up. They did a lot of work to make sure that where everything goes on the board and how you interact with the boards is super clear and intuitive. Like, you're gonna read through the rulebook, obviously, but even if you haven't, you guys didn't read through the rulebook, and there's no question as to where things go. Everything's numbered, everything's in rows, everything on this entire, situation board is what they call it, clearly marks out how many animals we've rescued, how much oil we've removed at all times. It's all right there for you to look at in a very obvious way. I don't think there was a single time in the game where somebody asked, where does this go? Because they just have spots for everything that are clearly marked.
So what I really liked is the inherent variability of the game. That's obvious in terms of dropping the dice, right? Any dice game has variability, and the tower gives that to you even more so in terms of how it's going to assign across the board and this cool drop through the tower and go out randomly. That's really awesome, and you see that. But what I really liked is from a design perspective that it is giving you variable structure to each gameplay. You get some control over that by choosing your different win condition. But the different win conditions are forcing you to think in very, very different ways. When we read through those win conditions after playing our first game, we could see, what we did in the game we played was rescue a whole bunch of animals. But in other games, you're going to want to have very, very different things, and you're going to use that to choose different resource specialists. And then even after that, we have the different interim bonuses that we can get. They're called resources, and you've got 4 of them available to you. And which resources become available to you are different every game, and then your choices of how you interact with them are different every game. So I really like this variability that occurs at all the areas of the game, from the time before you're setting up, and then every turn there's variability. And I think that's really awesome from the game design perspective. Kudos to Smirk and Dagger on that.
All right, I think that does it for the spill. Thank you so much for watching. We had a great time playing this morning. Hope you had a fun time watching and learning about the game, and it looked fun to you too. If you want to see more videos like these when we post them every single Tuesday, you can hit that subscribe button. You'll see every video we post. Hit that like button and leave a comment, and we would love to get back to you on those as well. Thanks so much for watching for this week, and we'll see you next time.